Hey, welcome to A Second Chance at Life. I'm the host, Arvilla Beckworth, and today I have an episode on burnout. But before I go into it, let me bring the expert at hand, Miss Dr. Kim.
Hey,
Hey, Dr. Kim, how are you today?
I am doing well today. Arvilla, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you again for coming on and sharing your expertise on this very sensitive subject and a must subject that we all need to have sometimes.
I definitely agree.
And would you mind just telling a little bit about yourself?
First off, shout out to the pink. I'm loving it. This is the pink season
Yes.
that we're coming in. For those of you all who are listening and can't see, we're both wearing shirts. I don't think we planned it, but
No.
it just happened. So I'm definitely feeling the femininity and just the call out for women, just throwing them a lifeline through this episode. So I'm very excited to be here and hopeful that we're going to say something that will rescue somebody or help them become aware of something so they can turn off of their path. But hello, friends. I am Dr. Kim of Align with Dr. Kim. I am an alignment coach, which specifically that means I support overwhelmed high achievers and confidently conquering their burnout so they can create more peace, balance, and joy in their everyday life. As an alignment coach specifically, I'm helping you to shift your mindset, your methods, and your moods, because burnout is simply just an invite to shift to the next level. That's all it is. It feels awful and terrible, but it's time to level up. It's a cry out from your soul. It's just an indicator.
I love that. And as you talk about burnout, we all have some stress in our job. Depending on the job, everyday stress could look like being unsatisfied, unmotivated, or even dreading to go to work. Could you please explain the difference between stress and burnout?
Absolutely. So there are levels to it, as they say. So yeah, the way I explain it, burnout is prolonged stress, and stress is good. I am also a chiropractor as well, so I understand about the system and the body with anatomy and physiology. All of this stuff is straight up online out of Gray's Anatomy. And physiological systems and understanding how your body works. So stress is a good thing. It's a motivator. It keeps us going. Now, yeah, prolonged stress is not good. So anytime we have stress, it's supposed to come to a head. Like if you got a project to do, you got a due date, you got to turn this in, those chemicals in your body are going to release so you can actually get the wheels turning and keep going, right? So you can move towards doing something, so you can take action, right? And then once you complete those things, your body also releases another set of chemicals like your endorphins, your dopamine, because when we do things and we're productive, we feel great. Shout out to people who like to do tick boxes, checking off their to-do list and things like that. You feel great. So the stress is supposed to calm down. Now, yeah, it may rile back up again because it'll come in with the kids. It'll come in somewhere else. It's interesting that you said, that things at work, because you can actually have burnout from a relationship in that arena. You can have burnout emotionally. You can have burnout spiritually for people who are in the church or religion or faith and things like that, which I'll chat some more about that as well. But prolonged stress is the burnout. So I'm gonna go back down. Like I said, there are levels. So first off, there's like, a challenge that you have. Some things may be challenging throughout the day, and you're okay with it. It's like you can handle it. You're competent. You can face it. You can go through it. Stress is another notch up, meaning that you've got a lot of things coming in. You have to manage those things, and you're able to provide. Like we said before, you're able to check the box off, and you're just fine. Your emotions, your chemicals regulate back down, and you're ready to go back out there. A step up from that is burnout. Well, let me say overwhelmed. From stress to overwhelm, you can be overwhelmed with things, meaning that you have a lot of things coming towards you, and you kind of it's juggling things, and some balls may actually hit the floor, and some of them may be glass and they may shatter, and that takes a toll on you. That's, emotionally heavy for you when we're not able to meet the expectations that we have or that other people have on us as well, right? And then
Right.
once we go up from overwhelm, it's like there's burnout. Burnout is when you're totally exhausted. You are still in the game and you develop this sense of hopelessness and just fatigue, and you don't know where to turn. And it seems like your personality starts to change, but really it's in the response. That's the difference. It's how your body responds to it, because burnout is a trauma response.
And I could say for me, I had an episode probably about maybe right around the pandemic with
Mhm.
my job. I felt burnout, but at the time, I didn't know that was the word to it. Trying to be a coach, trying to do my day job. And after a while, I just couldn't figure out, like, I couldn't think straight. I couldn't come
Yep.
sit at my desk and function properly. And I just felt so overwhelmed. I'm like, I cannot even do my day-to-day tasks, where I'm a planner by nature. So I'm the one that checks off the boxes. I'm the one that plans her day. So to sit here
Mhm.
and can't do anything, I was telling my daughter, I said, something is not right. And she goes, Mom, you need to rest. And to hear from a
Mm.
child, I was like,
They
no,
get
no,
it.
I'm good. But she knew
Yeah.
I needed to rest. And when I found that out, I told my husband, he's like, you know what? Why don't you take 2 weeks off work? Why don't you just get you some quality rest first? Let that be your first thing. Stop doing everything. Rest. And then
Yep.
figure out what you need from there. So yes, that was a great explanation of what burnout was, because I didn't know at the time. So I couldn't tell nobody else what I was going through. Even though I knew
Mm.
something was different. I'm like, something is not right about me, but I can't figure it out. But I always felt like I should be doing something when I probably really needed to be
Oh.
resting. I'm like, okay, I'm home. I got to do this, but I wasn't resting.
Right, absolutely. And I'm glad you said that. And that, like you said, it's so simple, the
Mhm.
answer to it, because people from the outside looking in, people with a child, like you said, with that type of understanding, from her perception, she was able to see, Mommy, you're going, and you need to rest, you need to recharge. Those are the two things that like are number one that will help. And I know sometimes even taking a 2 weeks break, it can be tough for your body to just have that pause. I am grateful that you're one that was aware that something was off in your body, because so many of us in the high achieving community, we just power through, right? We just want to push through so we can achieve those things because it gives us personal satisfaction. Sometimes to the point to where it's like you have to ask yourself, is my who caught up in what I do? Meaning that, is my value and my worth tied to the things that I do, or am I very passionate? You have to realize what type of person you are, and if you have crossed the limit. You made it, you found a limit for yourself at that point, and you also found some things that you needed to do. I know we're going to talk about burnout prevention, and I'll save it for later for that question, but you also started diving into some things so you could rest and recharge into yourself and refuel, and those things are super important for longevity.
And and you might have already talked about this. Now that we know the difference between stress, overwhelm, and burnout, what is, I guess, the root cause of burnout? Is
Yeah. So I'll go more into it. It usually is from a person, you're very passionate and you just want a lot of things done. And you got type A personality, and type A for awesome. That's how I call it. I don't look at it as strung out, people and things like that, stressed out people, because you just like to do things at a certain level because that's what you have defined for your life and who you are. But at the root of burnout, there is this fear that if I don't do anything, it's all going to fall apart. There's this, which is a false, type of belief. It's one of those lies, if you will, that we tell ourselves that's, in this system. And those things are fueled by so many things. And when I say the system, I mean the society that we grew up in, the environment that we grew up in. And just from a point of women here, it's like in our society, we're kind of taught to be exhausted or led to exhausted and still be expected to perform and do all of these wonderful things and be Wonder Woman. That's why so many people even saying, I can't remember but y'all gonna call it out though. The woman who's, I'm not your superwoman. We have to be like so many things at one time. It's like we have to be present for ourselves, because just like the adage, the proverb says, the saying, I should say, you can't pour from an empty vessel. You have to be filled within yourself. And if your value and if who you are is caught up in the things that you do, you're going to miss it every time. You have to be whole and operating from a place of, well, this feels good and this is what I want to do, from a place of authenticity. It's a shift, because it, like I said, it starts as a child, usually and you get as a child, you probably were praised for all of the things that you were doing. And that's how our brains are programmed. When we're praised for something, we will do it continuously, because our brain will pick that up as acceptance, as love, all of those type of things. Or if we were resting, here's the other side of it. We were reprimanded for resting. You're lazy. And our brains equate that as, oh, well, me resting means I'm lazy, so I can't do it. And you block yourself from resting, thinking that it's lazy. I don't feel right if I'm just still. I understand. Let's talk about that. Let's change that, because you do have limitations. We're a part of nature. And just like there's sunrise and sunset and seasons, the same thing goes on in our body and with our brain. As I said earlier about the term you want longevity in this thing. Yeah, you want productivity. You want to be able to produce and meet certain goals and, get that promotion, or, make this person, make whatever experience you want to make it, but you also want to last. Because as we all know, yes, the stress can kill you. It can cause premature death. And burnout, the tough part about that is it will have your brain in such a manner fooled and think that there's no other reason to live. This is another thing. People have suicide ideation around it as well, because they feel like there's no way out. And that's another reason why I'm so passionate about talking about this, because I have been there. I have been one of those doctors in a place where it's like, well, you know what? I got this policy. If I just happen, everything will be solved. That thought actually crossed my mind, because I am human. I don't have children. I'm not married or anything like that yet, but still, there are so many different loads that can be on you, or perception of how we look at things, when in reality, we always have a choice. You always have a choice, whether you do or don't do. Our bodies naturally want to preserve ourselves. You will psychologically self-preserve, as well as physiologically within your body preserve yourself. Your body is made pro-life to keep you in life. When things like hopelessness come in, feeling like there's no way out, you're always negative, always cranky, that's a person that's crying out for help. And you have to start looking inward to start helping yourself, or reaching out for help, because you have to be full.
Right. And with that, how do you recognize the signs? Because like I said, if I didn't know about me, what are some signs that, something is wrong? What should we be looking for?
Right. So fatigue is one of them that you said. This fatigue, these are the things that we overlook. These are the things that we want to try to power through. Maybe if I just get, an extra nap in here, I'm tired all of the time. If you notice that you've got these cravings, if you're cranky, like if you notice different things about yourself, like, well, I didn't used to do that. I wasn't, trying to deal with things like this, because these coping things will come up because your body will want to start feeling good. And like I said, this is your brain. Once again, pro-life, your brain is trying to calm you down. Your brain is trying to keep you safe. So we'll start reaching for things that are considered coping mechanisms. So it may look like procrastination. And oh my God, people are so shamed for this, and it's actually a trauma response. It's your brain, it's like a switch will flip off just to give yourself a break and everything. You're not procrastinating. You actually need some help and some assistance with setting things up, and you need to take some things off of your plate, because balance looks different for everyone. There's an imbalance. So whatever balance you need to give yourself permission to step into that form of balance for yourself. And you had support around you. I heard when you were saying in your story with your husband and your daughter, him saying, hey, you need to take those 2 weeks off so you can rest, so you can recharge, step away from this thing. If you have some things you can, like I said, take off of your plate, take off of your schedule, prioritizing yourself as well, so that way you can start recharging yourself. Another sign, like I said, was the crankiness, the procrastination, the fatigue in your body. Your body will let you know that you are burnt out. Listening to your body, you just achy, you got these stomach problems, emotionally, mentally, in your head, you're having a lot of more negative thoughts. You're speaking more negatively. You don't think anything is going to work out for your favor. You're not as cheerful or looking forward to things. That was one of my clues in the office. I am an empathetic person, and most women are. We care, and there are some men too, but just recognizing, that empathetic nature, that you care about other people sometimes more than you care about yourself. You will tend to put yourself last and everything. Well, I was in a space where I was emotionally burning out, and my point of, hey, there's something going on, was when I was in between patients in my office just crying, or I would just be staying away and not going, because usually I would get out of my office and go straight in so I could greet the patient. Well, it started to become a time where I just didn't want to go out there, and that was not like me. And I'm like, who is this? I just knew I felt off. I'm like, this is not the Dr. Kim that I'm used to being. It's like, what's going on the inside of me that I would act like that. And I know too, like I said, once again, these are behaviors. Notice the behaviors that you're starting to demonstrate, that you're participating in, or things that you're starting to do for coping. It's not to shame yourself. Please, please, please don't shame yourself. And even think about it, when you notice other women or other people, men around you, don't shame them for it's actually a cry out for help. We can help people heal and help ourselves to heal, even just through that point of awareness of saying, hey, I know something has been a little off here. I've noticed this about you. Can we talk about this? Or even within yourself, like you said, going to someone that's in your circle that you care about, someone that you feel safe with, and just having that talk, or going to a therapist or a coach or somebody. But having that talk to even say, hey, have you noticed anything different about me lately, these few? Because sometimes we can, go into these different modes, and we have that communication cut off. And that will show up in relationship issues. That's another sign. It's like, I just really hadn't been able to connect to my kids. I haven't been able to connect to my husband. He's cranky. He's not. Well, sometimes it's not them. They're responding to a response that's going on the inside of you, and they don't know how to communicate. So sometimes it's just good to sit and have a talk with the people who are near you and ask them, hey, what have you been noticing about things? Because support is a family. Support is something that's needed. It really is. Whether it's your friends, your family, the people that are around you, they can actually help you to give you another perspective on things. And it's important to be open and to be honest about things, and to just be in a place where you can receive and share, being able to share about it, so that way you can start that awareness journey.
Yes, and I like how you said to have, you want a safe space, because if you know that you can't trust the people around you to hear you, you will hold back. You won't say that I'm going through this or I've been feeling like this, because you're not comfortable with your surroundings. And I've always, even as a young girl, I've always gravitated to community. I love the fact when I can get with other women or other girls and really share my thoughts. But then, like in this day and age, you almost feel a little bit skeptical about sharing so much, especially when you're in a place of healing. I guess even everyday conversation, yeah, you're a little bit leery. But when it comes to a sensitive area of mental health, anxiety, burnout, depression, you kind of get reserved about sharing that information about you because you're not afraid the person you tell it to, one, can they help you? Two, will they go back and say something to other people and now they're looking at you different? So, it is a sensitive subject, but I love how you say, but get with people you love that's going to help you and express what you're going through. That way you get the opportunity at least to open up the door. You may not know and they may not know, but together we will find out what's going on with you. So,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've been in that space as well, Arvilla, even with people that I was paying to help me. And I felt like, in hindsight, let me say, I felt like at the time I was not being heard, or that my emotions and what I was saying was just kind of being um, glossed over. Because we have to understand too that everybody can't handle us at certain points, because it will trigger something in them, but you still need to say something.
yeah.
You are worthy of open, honest communication. Even if that person doesn't respond the way that you think they should respond, they may not have, that's just an indicator really that this is not the person that can help you. And it took me so long to just understand it, but I knew I was worthy of needing the help. And so I would start to go to other different resources or just reading. Because sometimes you can be watching, a YouTube video, like if people are watching us on YouTube now, and it will trigger something for you. So you can go and then understand about it and be led to the right people to share that information with. But I just wanted to say that as, hey, keep going. Even if that person that you thought that you could trust with it, they may not have the capacity for it, honestly, but you are worth being heard, and you can still share that with somebody who can help you with what's going on, or assist you, or guide you, or support you in some way.
Love it. And question on burnout. As my burnout process, when I kind of got to that edge, I was almost thinking, well, am I having a nervous breakdown? And for me, it was like, well, is burnout and nervous breakdown the same thing? And I guess that's my question to you. If it's not, would you mind explaining the difference of that?
Right. So just like I was talking about the level of the challenge, the stress, the overwhelm, and the burnout. Well, nervous breakdown is a notch above that one. A
Okay.
few notches
Okay.
actually above the burnout. That's beyond. It's when you done went past the stop sign. When I say going past the stop sign, I mean you're not picking up the cues in life that you need to stop. You're still powering through some things. You done ran all the red lights. You have ignored the signs because of something that's on the outside of you. Something has motivated you or had you in a moment of expectation, thinking that you had to push beyond it. And even that's a trauma response. But nervous breakdown, it's still all in the response that you have. Something has happened that has triggered and traumatized you. So whether it's long term or it's instant, because it could be something huge like a death, a divorce, big, huge things like that, especially people who are prone to having mental health issues in the past, or if they just, you notice that anxiety is something that runs in your family, and different other events just start to happen around you. It could be multiple little bitty things, or it could be one big crash after another, a death, or something else you witnessed, and then this was on. It's like the stuff just coming all over the place. Your response in a nervous breakdown, a person like that, that's a crisis. That's an emergency point. It's when you're actually scared for your life. You have points of delusion, meaning that you can't tell the difference between what's real and not. Maybe even having hallucinations. They can be auditory, they can be visual, seeing things, hearing things. You literally cannot function, meaning that it's hard to take a shower. And some of that could be depression as well, because that's also a brain response. It's like you will go numb. Numbness is shock and going into shock and all of those type of things. And your brain chemistry could be off, meaning that you need, some psychiatric attention and everything, which that is nothing to be held back about and things like that. No, you're not going crazy. No, you're not somebody that, has a label or whatever on them. You're a person, just like you would go to a hospital if you shattered your knee or you had a gash in your head. Well, emotionally, you have shattered something or something has shattered you. And it's not your fault and you need emergency assistance. So that's when it's like, hey, I need to call, a 911 number or something like that, because you don't need to prolong it, because things can be, like I said, off balance in your mind. Your brain chemistry, body chemistry could be off. And that's when it's like, hey, let me go to a hospital or check myself in somewhere because I really need some assistance. And there is help available for that. Mm-hmm.
And it's like we see it in the media or social media. You see stars have a nervous breakdown. And it's like, they're there to entertain, to perform, to do what they got to do. And like you said, if you're not recognizing the signs, you're driving past them, running the red lights. I can see where it comes to a halt, where it feels like at this moment, I have to check myself in. I cannot control what's going on. I'm afraid of what's about to happen next. And I would always see stories about that online, but you never come back. They never say, well, what was the fix or what was the cause? So you're always like, well, dang, how did they get that far? And the people that are around them didn't say nothing, or the people they pay around them didn't say nothing, So it's like, how did they get that far? So that's
that is a huge thing. It really is. You're right. We live in a world where insanity is accepted. I'm just going to say that. I mean, you will see it live out. You will think people are performing. You think, it's a show, and these people are really in need of like psychiatric help. And a lot of times, like I said, it's because so many expectations and demands have been placed on them, and so many things that they are under and feel like they can't get out of. And like I said, we all have a choice about a yes or a no with things. And you can always, some people, let me just recognize that some people feel like they can't say no. Mm-hmm. And that's when all of the things happen. They feel like, well, if I say no, I'm going to look this way. If I say no to this, all of this is going to fall apart or something like that. And that's, like I said, that's the lie. You always have a choice with those things. You always have support. It just may not be immediately around you sometimes. And that's the thing that has to change sometimes, the people around you. I know I saw a meme somewhere that said, before you decide that you're depressed or have some type of mental health issue, make sure you're not surrounded by insecure jerks, pretty much. Because your environment can feed into that. Because mental health and trauma is not just individual, it's collective. It's in the society, it's in the circle that we're in. It's generational, it's communal, it's racial. It's so many, it's so much more wider than we thought, especially in the studies that I have been doing recently, just with how trauma is just transferred and how the healing of trauma has to be beyond just that individual. You have to recognize their capacity to heal. And you also have to recognize that, hey, there are some things that are really jacked up around this person that they experienced or either are currently experiencing right now. And we have to see what they have control over, not control, but influence, what do they have influence over, and how, can you empower that person to be influenced and to heal at the same time?
Now, is that why boundaries are so important? I mean, we talk about boundaries and being able to say no, but does boundaries and burnout link together?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. So when you are in a place where you don't have understanding of boundaries. You weren't taught boundaries. You don't even know what boundary is. Hello, I'm somebody that did not know what that was. It's like, boundary, ain't that like where the line and the sea and the sand meet? But I didn't understand what that meant. And so when you don't have a great understanding of boundaries, or when you try to make boundaries, because well, not psychological, but in childhood development, around the age of 2 is when young tiny humans start to understand no.
Yeah.
And what do the parents do? You don't tell me no. That's rude. Don't be me. But no. So that's just in one instance, and I know all parents don't do that. And no, people understand what boundaries are, but it's also in the your childhood development as well with that. But coming into a place where you don't have boundaries and stuff, it's like the perfect storm to become manipulated. It's the perfect storm to become a person that experiences multiple traumas, a person that has a tough time, healing and even engaging around other people in society. It makes it tough for you to be a successful person, a consistently successful person, because you will be sacrificing yourself because you don't understand how to say no, or you don't have strong boundaries. You can be too flexible, or you can have walls, because it could go either way. You could start setting up walls and not let anything in, and it's like, okay, you don't let the support in, all of those type of things. So you're still ending up in a place of burnout. That's how the cycle will continue if you don't introduce boundaries and get a great understanding of it and start listening to what your particular boundaries are, because that's the space where it's safe for me and you to exist, pretty much, with boundaries. When we set boundaries, when we have boundaries, we understand who we authentically are. We understand our worth. Going back to number one, when you asked the question about, hey, what's the root cause of that? It's like, we understand that our worth and our being and our wholeness is legit. We're empowered in who we are and what we have. We're authentically ourselves. And so there are things that I will do and things that I won't do because I understand my limits. Now, yes, everybody has to learn their points of limitation. And there's, like I said, there's no shame around it. Everybody goes through that. It's life. You will take on more than you can chew. What is it? You bite off more than you can chew. Mm-hmm. That's the phrase that we say. Sometimes you will do that, and really starting to understand what your motivation is behind it. It's like, well, why did I do that in the first place? What was I feel like I was lacking or something? Starting to understand, what promoted that behavior in you is when you start kind of digging down a little bit deeper. Even with the boundary, it's like, well, why am I having trouble with this? When you start doing some self-reflection, all kinds of answers start popping up.
And that's the truth. It's like, it goes back to self. I think sometimes we forget that we want to find something to either attach it to or blame. And we got to remember, sometimes we got to look within ourselves. Are we doing our self-care? Are we creating those boundaries? Are we recognizing that something is not right and we need to take a step back and either get additional support? So you're right. It does, I just can't even imagine, being at a point where, like you said, putting the walls up, the help people that want to help you, you got your walls up because you're trying to protect something. You think you're protecting something, but it might be the wrong kind of walls that need to go up. What are some ways that we can prevent burnout?
That's a great question. By staying in alignment, of course. So yeah, specifically, yeah, that's like I look up things, and I know, we're coming from a place of wanting to come out of burnout. But burnout is simply, like I said, a result of you not being in alignment with who you are, not being in alignment with, what you need as a person. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we don't understand our needs, and we're completely motivated by these things outside of us, and it makes us forget the concept of self. And when you start returning to your self-concept and who you are and what you have and what you like to do in certain situations, you can exist in a space where burnout is no longer in your world. It's just no longer in your world, because you are a person that prioritizes rest
Right.
and recharge.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we're not, in that space where we can connect to ourselves, especially if you're in a space of despair and hopelessness and you're just in pain and you don't know what to do. And you hear somebody like me talking about, well, you got to be in alignment. That makes no sense to you.
Mm.
But what I can tell you is that you start prioritizing self-care. You start prioritizing resting and recharging. Specifically, in my group Mindful Bosses, I wanted this to be a place where people could invest in their well-being, meaning their mind, body, soul, emotions, and socially. Those are just 5 aspects of well-being. There are several more, but those are the 5 that I focus on. But you want to rest and recharge in all of those areas. In the household of faith, we have a Sabbath. We
Mhm.
have a day of rest. So now, if God had a day of rest, who created everything that was ever made, I think we deserve some rest too. I think we do. I'm like, I think that's a good plan to follow,
Yes.
especially if my creator said that he rested, then I am, like my father, who I need to rest as well. So
Mhm.
resting and recharging, building that in daily, not just weekly or all of those type of things, because sometimes we can confuse or get twisted what is pampering and what is self-care. Like
Mm.
just soaking in a tub, that feels good and it will recharge you and relax you. And that's wonderful. You should include those things in your routine, but you also want to include in your routines, hey, I am soaking because I had a tough day. Why not also journal so psychologically and emotionally you can have a free space to get that out? That's like a rest, because we will hold on tight so many times. Am I safe to say how I really feel here? Do I feel okay here? Well, in my journal, I feel as safe as I want to be. In my therapy session and with my coach, I feel safe here and I can release those things that I need to release without judgment.
Mhm.
That's what a mindful practice is. It's you having creative expression and just expressing things. You're in the practice of what if the now moment. You're in the now moment with non-judgment. And that is so releasing and freeing. You will have a response of feeling safe. So that's how you come home to yourself. That's how you begin to feel safe in your body. So you will understand how to be your authentic self, how to be in alignment with that person. You have to be connected within first. And that revolution starts with resting and recharging, making it a priority.
Mm. And I love the fact that you said journaling, because I know even as a young girl, when I was in middle school, back then it was diary, but it was
Yeah,
still a safe place to let all your feelings out without being judged. You were able
right.
to write those things. And sometimes I realized that I actually figured out my own problems. What I was second guessing or what I wanted to question too as I was writing, like the answer was being written in a notebook. I was like, I just
That's
needed to sit
amazing.
down and do some reflection and kind of get it on a paper for really it to make sense.
That is so powerful. I didn't know anything about a diary when I was a teenager. I knew about them because like I was, and I'm probably giving out my age, but I would watch Doug on Nickelodeon and I
Mhm.
would at the end of every episode or something, he'd be
Yep.
like, "Dear journal." So boys had journals and girls had diaries. And I know the thing then my mind was around because they would write about their boyfriends in there, who they
Mhm.
like. And in the Mean Girls episode, not episode, but the show, ooh, that would be cool if they did have episodes of Mean Girls. That would be interesting. But the movie Mean Girls,
Yeah.
oh, maybe that's another topic. Oh, okay, let me come back. Oh, my brain just going out. My brain does that. But what I was saying about Mean Girls, they would write things down. This is what I
Mhm.
understood at that point for as far as teenage. I just wanted to say that is excellent to start that practice as a young younger person, so that way you can become comfortable with your own thinking and your own thoughts and make space for that. And like you said, be in a safe space, learning to be safe within yourself and how to emotionally respond to things. Like you said, you were reflecting. That's an
Mhm.
emotional skill that a lot of people don't have. It's so many people just will skip over that and go straight into reaction mode in their lifestyle. But journaling, it slows you down and you're able to see yourself. You're able
Yeah.
to hear and respond to yourself with just the action of writing. And I know some people even do it on their computers or their phones because, they want to lock it and
Mhm.
have a password and things like that. But either way, that is a mindful practice that will slow you down. So, because our minds are always going, hint, we just had a display of that with Dr. Kim. So yeah, it actually helps to slow you down, whether you do digital journaling or in an actual notebook.
And also, I wanted to say, with that, me and my daughter used to share a notebook. And when she was in middle school, kind of going through her stuff, I would have her write what she was going on with. But then when she was finished, she would pass it to me. I would read it, take time to digest it, and then I'd write back to her. So when she didn't feel comfortable to address me personally, we just had a notebook that we would write back and forth in. And that way we can exchange it. That way you still got the feeling of journal and being non-judgmental, but at the end of it, you got a response as well. So it's like that's how we kind of started our communication, because she was at that stage at middle school where she was trying to learn herself. That used to be my baby. So it's like, you don't understand what I'm talking about anymore. So it became really rocky at one point. So yeah, that's why I would say, that's why I mentioned journal, how it was so helpful, because I think it helped me and my daughter kind of get that safe space as well.
I love that.
I noticed even in the pandemic, and they've said studies have shown, but our mental health, specifically depression and anxiety, has taken a toll during and after the pandemic. What are your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts about it, just as a collective, I looked at it as a point of awareness. I said, wow, there are a lot of people and companies starting to understand that things are changing, or that, the way we were doing things just was not working. I think it was exposure. I mean, in the country, just overall, it just seems like a lot of things were exposed politically, and also with, us having to be on lockdown, and, the mental just positioning of people. You just really started to see that some people were really having crises,
Yeah.
and that their responses, people were coping in all sorts of ways. Some people, were starting businesses, but at the same time, they were running away from what they were feeling on the inside. They became busybodies,
Yeah.
or they were trying to solve problems, which is fine, because, that's the wonderful thing about having a big, beautiful brain, is that you can turn your frustrations into assets.
Mhm.
So that's a good thing. But yeah, I just really, felt like overall just humanity. My thoughts were that, man, I've started seeing people just come together more. People who had Zoom, just, man.
Yes, Zoom has become best friend for a lot of people. A lot of new connections were made.
Exactly. If you had stock in Zoom, hello.
Yes.
But
Oh
yeah,
gosh.
oh my goodness. But yeah, I really was amazed the fact that people came together to support each other.
Mhm.
I know I participated in quite a few meditation circles, quite a few check-in circles, self-care check-in, just doing movement and everything with people. Because at the time during the pandemic, I wasn't working. I was
Mm.
still healing, coming out of my burnout situation, which was a lot. And I am so grateful I had this space. But I really understood what people were going through, because I was in a point of isolation. Because burnout, when you're healing, no matter what you're healing through, there will always be some point of isolation. So you can actually heal. That's just something that goes on. And I started to see that go on nationally. And I was like, wow, this is just so huge. And then seeing people having to go back into those workspaces after some of them were very grateful to have the flow in their day. They noticed that they were able to get work done better just by
Mm-hmm.
being at home. My niece was one of them. She actually perform better when she was outside of the classroom. And I know
Mm-hmm.
some of that is because, your different personality types. I know the extroverts just went crazy because they need people to
Right,
stay
right.
cool. And people like me, introverts, I'm like, I love it. I can go to the grocery store once a week now. you know, it's like I don't have
Yes.
to deal with
Comfort
people.
zone. Yes.
Like it feels good to me. Like what y'all freaking out about? But no, when I really started to feel for people who were scared for their lives to go back in when it was time to come back in and reintegrate into society and do things on a wider scale. Just that fear that people had. And how they were going to move forward and do things. And I was
Mhm.
also just proud of seeing some people take a stand and say, no, I've learned something. That awareness, they actually did something with it and they stayed with it. They didn't return to the status quo. So I was cheering some people on. I was like, you go ahead.
Right, right.
So, but yeah, I think a lot of this just exposed what's going on in the world, what's going on in people's mind. It just really gave us a changing point to see that hey, people need support on a widespread, and people are really hurting out here.
Mhm.
People really have so many different ways that they're coping and they're in need of healing. I talk about that a lot because yeah, there are healthy coping skills versus unhealthy coping skills with doing things, and the way people deal with their problems, is it's all relative to their life path and who they are. But I rather see a lot of people heal, and I've seen a lot of that actually, and a lot of people participating in like a healing movement during this, and it's still going on. There have been so many businesses have started providing more mental health days for people. I've started seeing
Mhm.
some positive changes in the way the company starts to value the people that work for them, the good companies. They
Right,
started to
right.
notice that the way we work as a nation and as a people has changed. There is this mindfulness aspect to being productive in our companies and also our well-being. I am so
Mhm.
glad recently I saw that they want to do an anxiety screening for adults now. They want to make that a main thing when you're doing your job and everything. And I was like, that is great, because I'm looking at this for them to start bringing in more support, or for the
Right.
company to start saying, hey, there may be some things we have to change in the way we're doing business, whether it's giving people 20-minute breaks or something, or
Mhm.
setting up a nap room, or giving everybody access to certain apps to support them. So I really was appreciative of seeing how some companies started to adapt and understanding of, hey, I want whole holistic people working for me.
Right, right. Yes, and I'm glad that you said that because a lot of people felt, like you said, that it was finally being recognized, especially in the black and brown community. It's not something that mental health was really nothing we talked about. It was kind of swept under the rug, or I'm fine, or I'm good. But as you see more and more people start to recognize, I'm isolated. I'm by myself, so now I'm dealing with myself. Work was a coping mechanism sometimes. So me going to work allowed me to function differently, but now I'm here by myself the whole time. And I'm realizing that I have this and I have this and that. So that was kind of my whole purpose behind this season being about mental health. It's like now that we've recognized what's going on, let's keep the conversation going in our community. Let's keep talking about it. Let this not be, like you say, we're 2 years in and now everything's opening back up and we forget what we were trying to get through and heal from. Let's keep the conversations amongst ourselves so we can have with our young people, give them an outlet to feel like, you know what, the ultimate answer is not always committing suicide. How can I talk to somebody? How can I let my voice be heard? So I'm really passionate about just talking about mental health in our community needs to be spoke about more. Let us be okay saying, I'm not fine, sis. I'm not doing good. These kids is driving me crazy. My job wants me to work more hours. I'm not doing good. And to have someone on the other end and say, sis, I got you. Or sis, I can help you without being judged. Their
Yeah,
response.
I love the seeing the advancement, especially in the Black community as well, with more women and men
Yes.
being in a position of, I'm starting to see the women become more empowered. The women are just becoming so non-tolerant of things that they were taking in the past, whether that's unfair treatment, unfair pay. We're really starting to stand up for what we want and to display our worth. And I kind of feel like the men are kind of catching up and being self-aware and coming into healing spaces because they have been silent for so long. And I feel like there are certain expectations and things in society that have silenced them. And a lot of them have not spoken out or had a voice about things. So they've been able to express themselves in different ways and in different circles with other men, of
Mhm.
course, and just collectively, Black men, like I said, coming together in a space. I've seen that more in a positive way because we all know, we've all heard about the barbershops being, one of
Right.
those spaces. And I think even the government started going around to the Black barbershops to do mental health trainings with people. I saw an article about that as well. So I was like, I am really, really glad to see this. I'm excited about what's coming up.
Yes. So thank you for sharing that. I didn't know they were actually going through the barbershop. Because I know even for us as women, the beauty shop is another form of therapy for us. We go to there and we letting everything out, but it feels good to have someone trained in that, at least recognize it and hearing your story. They see you either every couple of weeks, every month, but they're now trained to identify with that.
Yep.
So it's good to know that somebody is taking some interest in that. And Dr. Kim, lastly, please tell my audience where they can connect with you online.
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook or Instagram at Align with Dr. Kim. That's the best way to keep up with me. My DMs are open. I'm available for conversation and everything. I'm excited to get started on some one-on-ones here soon, to
Okay.
invite some more people back in just to help to help people to shift into that space, into their next level, because so many people are looking for support, and I definitely want to be a place of support for people on my page, on my Facebook page as well. Also, I'm looking forward into, once I do the one-on-ones, we'll cap that off and we'll be going into doing the group program as well, because I do have a program. We're just still working on it and getting the tweaks out of it and everything, but I will be available for one-on-one support with this soon.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you for sharing your information. I'll make sure that I have everything in the show notes. If you didn't catch anything, I'll make sure I'll have all her information. That way you can look her up. She said you can DM her at discretion. Like she said, she don't want. Make sure you're mindful when you DM her. But thank you for being so open and so transparent. Plus, giving us knowledge. Like I said, us in our community, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. We think we're working and this temporary feeling will go away. So thank you for explaining it, for breaking it down. And hopefully this conversation now opens some eyes about, okay, well, what I've been going through, I'm beyond stress. I'm burnt out. Where now we can start recognizing the signs that we need to look within and see what we need to change.
Absolutely.
So, well, ladies, I hope this was a blessing episode. Make sure you continue to follow us next week. But until then, you guys have a great week. Bye bye.
Bye.